pretty whack. Let me put some music on real quick because, yeah, mini music. Jazz is good for you. Anyway, let's get started. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go over by request. We're gonna go over managers. Um, we're gonna go over manager setups specifically. So we're gonna cover everything from sponsors, trainers, scouts. We're gonna cover which ones are worth purchasing in the event that you choose to go down the path of making purchases to support the game. If you do, good on you, great, thank you. You're gonna help the game, go a little longer. And if not, then that's perfectly fine too. We'll go over all the ones that you can use that are, effective for free to play players. So like I said, we're gonna go over both options. So when you start the game, I believe you get a total of two manager slots. I have a couple of them, as you can see, because I've spent some money in the game. Some of them are pretty excessive. You don't really need all these slots. I'm just, lazy, and also, well, it kind of comes back to me anyway. The investment. You are paid back the investment. I'll explain that too. So let's go ahead and start off with which ones should you have and which ones are worth money. Spending money for, etc. I would say it is worth getting a minimum of 3 slots. One for PvP, one for farming, which will do extra duty for farming, for selling, and for training your characters. And then last but not least, then you're going to have a overnight setup. You're gonna have an overnight setup. So I'll explain the purposes of them all, of course. So for PvP, the reason why, of course, you want PvP is because there are managers, or excuse me, there is one sponsor, and then 2 trainers who are going to go ahead and boost your stats. The excuse me, the stats, they add up. Okay, the stats are given to all your players, so that's important to have. So that's mandatory, for PvP. Then second, you're gonna have your farming. Your farming is going to be a combination of several of them. As you see here, I have my farming slot, but the farming slot can be many things. You can do it for farming, you can do it for your Coliseum runs, you can do it for your, training. Your trainings, you can either, get more experience out of training, so you can spend less money when you're doing training or doing combinations, or, grinding spirit stones. You can have a seller setup, etc., etc., etc. So that one's the one that's gonna be, doing the most work for you. And then last but not least, the other one, the third slot that I recommend is, of course, an overnight slot. The reason why I say overnight is because that's where you're gonna put your, your managers that have very long cooldowns, so that by the time you wake up, you can hit those cooldowns and, get your daily achievement, and also get, those big fat benefits. For example, the, overnight manager that you can use for beef, to get a big chunk of money, to get a big chunk of GP, etc., etc. Or in my case, where I use Yukata Eve here for a premium ticket. If you decide to spend money, then you can basically just, take everything I just said and put them in their individual slots. The reason why I said before that they pay themselves back is because you can go ahead and you can put actives on each of those slots, and eventually the cooldowns are going to come up and you'll be able to get, additional stamina, additional BP, and eventually it's going to come up to the amount that you would get for a crystal refresh. So that's where I'm talking about, hey, it's going to pay itself back. So that covers the formations. Let's go ahead and talk about managers. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about PvP first. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that because PvP is the most important. The most important is actually PvE. Okay, this is especially true for anyone. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner in the game who just came along to the game. If so, welcome. Or if you're a veteran player. All right, PvP is you're mainly going to use it for, live if you play live. And then, of course, for the Galaxy Super League. And then right now, how we're in the off season for Galaxy Challenge League. So let's go ahead and we're going to go over the options. Right now, the only thing that really matters is three slots. Everything else is up to you. But the first slot that's mandatory, okay, is Lucy. You need to have Lucy. I don't care what point of the game you are. She is a priority, okay? So the reason being is because, as you can see here on her skill, or excuse me, her passive, Galaxy Concert, she gives you power and technique. So that's 30 power, 30 technique for everybody on your team. All right, that's huge. The other reason why I mentioned that is because Lucy is the only, all right, she is the only sponsor in the game that gives your team stats. All right, there are no pay-to-win managers that give stats. So again, Lucy is a must-have. She is mandatory. All right, you have to have her. You have to have her. I don't care what anybody says. You need her. You need Lucy. Lucy's a priority. And why is her evolve form giving her more shading? That's weird. Let's go with the blue one. So, like I said, you need to have her. Not only that, but she also gives a pretty respectable active. 450 gold for each registered friend. Now, we're going to talk about the gold actives a little bit later. Alright? So, like I said, you have to get Lucy. You want to have the 1800 GP saved and set aside for her. So that the minute she comes up in Scout, you have to get her. Alright? This is not an option. You need Lucy for your PvP slot. Like I said, the second slot for your sponsors, it can be whoever you want. It doesn't matter. Okay? Because none of the other managers are going to give you any other benefits that anybody else can, that matters. Nobody else, gives you a boost to your stats. Right now I currently have every single manager in the game that can go for the sponsor slot. I believe the only exception is one character who was recently released. I think she's either Ardor or Light. Let me go check real quick. I believe she's Ardor. Nope, I think, let me check if it's Light. There she is, Sujin. Nope, Sujin's a trainer, never mind. So, there goes that idea. So, let's go back. The next one, like I said, you can pick whoever else you want on the second slot of sponsor. The reason why I'm using Santa Selena, is because she has a cooldown reduction skill on her passive. So that means I can get off actives a lot faster on this slot. And then she also has, 10 quick GP for her active. Not bad. Let's move along. For trainers, okay, we're gonna go over the free-to-play options first. Okay, I'm gonna go over the most important ones. Okay, it comes down to the following choices. I don't have this person yet because I never bothered scouting him because I spent money on the game. Yay me. But this is another one that you want to have. You want to have Gerald. Gerald is a 2-stat buffer, power and speed. We're gonna go to his evolved version because it's 30. I believe it's 30 when, no, excuse me. I screwed up. No, excuse me. When you evolve a manager, you actually buff their active. Excuse me. When you give them superbs, that's how their passives go up. We'll talk about their levels in a bit. But he gives you... excuse me. But the... What's it called? You get 30 power and speed when you evolve. No. You get more. You evolve their. Let me stop for a second. Rewind. Okay, there we go. Their passive gets buffed as you add superbs. Their active gets buffed when you evolve them. There we go. So yeah, if you're a free-to-play player, Gerald is a must-have. Your other option when it comes down to your trainer is going to be one of two. One of them is a dark manager, that being Samuel. She is a 4-star player. She gives a boost of 20 in speed and stamina. And then your other active, or should be your other choice, I believe is a... Check real quick. It is Clover. Clover's your other option. She gives 20 to power and technique. So that's entirely up to you which one you pick out of Clover and Samuel. So the difference comes out to about 20 points in total stats that you're gonna get over your opponents if you are spending money on the game. So there's that. It's not that huge of a difference, to be honest with you. So it's not a big enough difference to have people run around and say, "Oh, pay to win," but it is what it is. Now we're also gonna cover the pay to win options or pay to play, whatever. Those are the myriad of Selenas and Eves that we can get. And it depends on which one. So for example, for mine, I actually use Yukata Selena for technique and speed. And then I also use School Uniform Selena, who also gives speed. So if you notice, I'm obviously focusing on speed there. The reason being is because I'm a Thunder player, and Thunder lives and dies by speed. Granted, it's kind of gotten a little weaker over time, but it is what it is. In any case, that's not me trying to tell you, hey, you should go this. This is just my specific choice. Even for any Thunder players or prospective Thunder players out there, I'm not going to say this is the best option. That's just simply something that I believe in, even though the game has evolved. And I'm constantly getting outsped in mid as it is with my current mid lane, but it's still the one I believe in. It's still the one I live and die by. So it is what it is. Other options that can be for stats are, let me check real quick, that are worthwhile. Okay, it's not her. This one, you have Sailor Selena, power and technique. Can't go wrong with that. It's also pretty cute. Not Halloween Selena, which is one of the worst purchasable ones in the game. Standard Selena is actually an EXP boost, definitely not worth it. So I believe, yeah, that covers all of them, I think, yeah. Then you have the Eves, excuse me. You have Sailor Eve, power and speed. Can't go bad, it's not bad at all. And you have Technique and Vitality from School Uniform Eve. I actually might switch to Sailor Eve later, actually. It's not bad. Standard Eve doesn't do that. So there you go. You have the myriad of Eves and Selenas. Those are your options for stat boost. If you're not going to go that route, then you're going to want to go with, one more time, Samuel or Clover. You can't go wrong with either of them. They're both 4 stars, so you can build them quickly because you only have to use regular 3-star lead trays as opposed to 5-star lead trays. So you can consider that if you're in a desperate bid to get some power going. So that's up to you. So going from there, we're pretty much done with the PvP slot. Everything else, like I said, 1 sponsor slot and then both of the scouting slots, those are completely up to you because none of them, as of yet, give any sort of power when it comes to anything. So you can put whatever you want here. You can use that to give your PvP slots some more flexibility. An example of that is you can, for example, put, like, let's say, not him, but you can put, let's say, Sigmund there. You can put Sigmund there because once his active comes off, you can activate your main sponsor and get an extra bit of gold or whatever. So that covers PvP. Let's go ahead and move our happy little selves over. You can go over to the farming one. This is going to be your main bread and butter. Alright, and this is probably the one where we're going to spend the most time talking about. 1 second. I'm just grabbing something on my side. I'm responding to a message. Alright, so let's continue. Next is your farm slot. This is going to be your most important one and the one you're probably going to be using the most. So we're going to do the same thing like I mentioned before. We're going to talk about pay to win options. We're going to talk about free to play options. So first, this is what I would recommend. I run 2 different ones. I have 2 different farm slots. I have this one for farming, and then I have one that's more focused on building gold quickly. Okay, so you can do both. This is the one I use for bonus drops. So that goes with a pay-to-win option, which is Korean Selena, who gives me bonus gold when I win, but he also gives me a bonus chance to drop an item. You know, an extra drop. Her counterpart, her free-to-play counterpart, worth getting, of course, is Periel. So Periel gives you a bonus, you know, chance of a drop, manager proc. If you've seen my Clover video, description below, you'll see that she can proc aside from the Clovers. So you can get ultimately 3 drops if you're lucky when you're doing a farmable match. Her active is also not half bad, 450 gold per registered friend, compared to Korean Selena, who gives you a instant chunk of 24,000 gold. Which one of these are better, you ask? The gold per registered friend is better because, one, it has a smaller cooldown, and if you proc them multiple times a day, the per friend will always outweigh the big one. The big one is best used overnight. Hint, hint. Moving right along, we go over to the trainers. For trainers, currently the best option is 100% free to play. You do not have to get any pay to play options here. So, I believe, yeah, that's it. If I'm right, I'm right. None of them are paid. None of them have to be paid for. Your best options right now is Stella, who reduces ST consumption by 10%. Hassel, who reduces consumption by 20%. Then you have Ingram, who decreases ST consumption by 20%. And last but not least, Sigmund, who is a maximum stamina of 20 when maxed out. So all 4 of them are high priority, okay? Don't worry about Periel, don't worry about Selena. Your main priority is getting Anastella, Hassel, Ingram, and Sigmund. Okay? The reason being is because Sigmund gives you more value for your crystals. Alright? At max stamina, your maximum stamina in the game is 60. He brings that up to 80. Okay? So that's a 33% boost. That's huge. That means every 10 crystal refresh of yours, instead of getting 60 stamina, you're getting 80. Okay? That means every 3 crystal refreshes, you're getting 1 for free. So that's huge. So Alucard over here is very, very good at that. So he's definitely worth getting. His active, he copies the main sponsor. So that's pretty nice to have. And then Ingram, he copies your trainer. What I suggest is you putting Anastella as your main trainer and then leaving Hassel as your sub-trainer, because Hassel's has a stronger active. Hers is 12 BP, whereas Anastella's is 8 BP, and they both have the same exact cooldown. So by you having her as your main trainer, as hers is not as important, what you can do is, hey, Ingram's active is up. You go ahead, you swap out Anastella for somebody else. Like, let's say, for example, one of the free managers that you've gotten over the time. Like, let's say, Holiday Selena. That's 30 stamina right there that you're getting. Boom. So you're farming even more efficiently. So, like I said before, you're also going to be switching around this slot a lot, unless you're going to be like me and buying a bunch of slots. So let's talk about the gold one. My gold farming one isn't much different. It's just the sponsors that are different. So again, we're going to cover, pay to play also. And this is one of the highest recommendations I can make for a manager to purchase Halloween Eve. Okay? The reason why I recommend Halloween Eve is because of the simple fact that she gives you a huge bonus 40% to gold. Right? That's massive. It's far and away the best in the game. Okay, the next available to that is Charlotte over here, who is 20. So she gives twice as much as Charlotte. Alright? Korean Selena, I believe she matches Charlotte while also giving you a bonus proc. So this is your best bet right here for bonus gold. If you do not want to spend money on the game, again, that's fine. Instead of Halloween Eve, your option is then going to be Lohengrin. Lohengrin gives you a 10% bonus to gold. So that's not half bad. And again, since she is a 3-star and Charlotte is a 4-star, you don't have to spend much resources to max them out. Moving on from there, there's not really much else to talk about the farming setup. So next we're going to go ahead and move on to the training setup, which actually has a lot of variation. The training variation is another one that's going to give you a lot of difference. You know, you get a lot of bang for your buck here. So when it comes to training, it can be, let's say for example, feeding your characters penguins to make them, stronger, or feeding them swirlies like I have to do right about now. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that out of the way real quick while I'm doing this. Yeah, good idea. Let me go ahead and go to a random thunder player that I'm powering up. Who was I powering up? Anyone remember? Was it Paulina? Yes, it is. It is Paulina. So let's talk about them. All right. So like I said, we're gonna cover pay to play, free to play. Said it before, I'll say it again as much as I have to. Gotta cover all of them. So first, we're gonna cover the pay options, and there are several of them that are worth it. So we have Swimsuit Eve. Swimsuit Eve is amazing. She gives 20% bonus EXP. We have another, which was the other? Actually, no, wait, there's one more, I believe. Let me check. Who's the other one that I use that's paid? I believe there's one more. I gotta grab it real quick. Let me check real quick. Let me see. There it is. The other paid option is Swimsuit Selena. She decreases the training cost. I believe hers maxes out at 20%, 20% reduction. So this is actually very handy when you're, spending gold on swirly power up like I was doing just now. So you can put her up. You can put her up alongside the free-to-play options, because those are really the only two options currently that involve money that affect what you're doing. Another one that involves lowering your training cost is one of our newest managers, Mitch. She is pretty cool because she lowers her training cost, but she also lowers the evolution cost, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Because let's be real. The later you get into the game, you're really gonna be hurting for gold. All right, you're gonna want as much gold as humanly possible. So every bit helps. Her active is also a very small cooldown, which is even better. It goes perfectly because if you have her as an active manager, every time you're dropping by every little bit to go ahead and do some training, she's putting in, her cooldown is coming down, and that's gonna go ahead and pay for its, pay for a crystal refresh eventually. Moving on from there, we're gonna go to another facet of training. What's important is actually no, we're gonna cover later. So not yet. We have Shasta. Shasta lowers training cost by 10%. We have the manager I mentioned earlier. She is a light manager. She has been released, but she is currently not available. That would be Sujin. She is a trainer. She will be increasing acquired training EXP by 10%. She will be replacing the 4-star manager that I currently use for training once she comes out. So Sujin is going to be nice for that. She will become available after the current CVC season, because that's the way that they're doing it nowadays. When they introduce a new 5-star manager, they first become available via Club Scout for 2 seasons. On the first season, it's Club Scout only. On the second season, I believe they can be scouted. Now that I activated Mitch's active, I can go ahead and switch her out for the other version that was in the show. And she is a 4-star. And that would be Anne. Anne is the 4-star option. She gives 10% experience. Excuse me, increases the acquired experience by 10%. So, like I said, once Sujin comes out and you max her out, Sujin's automatically better than her. So in the meantime, you can definitely take advantage of Anne. And then once you get, Sujin and Euphemia, and then you can go ahead and drop it from there. From there, we also have another option in the scout option, and that is, if I'm not mistaken, there we go, Kokobale. Kokobale increases the acquired training experience by 10%. I already have her maxed out. I actually use her because of the GP active as well, which is pretty nice. But another 10%. So this adds up. All right, don't get it twisted. This adds up. You can see you'll be able to test it for yourself if you want. Actually, you'll be able to. Actually, let me show you. What's hers? Okay, 20%. Let's go to. Actually, let me do my training first for Spirit Stones. Get this out of the way. There we go. I'm not gonna switch her out. So we have Kokobale there, and then we have the other training managers, which is Swimsuit Eve, Anne, and Euphemia, right? So let's take a generic player. I believe I have a generic player available right about now. No, I don't. Oh, that's fine. I can use this 4-star. I can use John real quick. Where'd he go? There he is. So we have John, right? If I give him a regular 5-star Litre, excuse me, 5-star Penguin, excuse me. 5-star Penguin gives him 14 levels. So let's switch him out for a different set. Same thing, right? Two whole levels worth of difference. Alright? Now, this becomes a bigger deal with larger penguins, right? 20 levels with a 6-star. Four levels with a 6-star. So this only gets better with larger sources of EXP. You can take a big Kuma, right? The 6-star Kuma. If I'm not mistaken, a 6-star Kuma will max out a Thunder player at 7 stars. However, I believe it will not be enough experience to take a out of element player to level 70. If you use the training managers, it will do so immediately. So that's gonna save you a lot of penguins. That's going to save you a lot of money, because remember, the higher your character's level, the more expensive it is to continuously feed them. So another hint right there, if you're looking to power up a character with swirlies or whatever, make sure you just finish evolving them to ST5, ST6, ST7, whatever it is, and while they're at level 1, you use your swirlies there to keep the cost down. So that covers training. We've covered PvP, we've covered farming, we've covered gold farming, we've covered trading. We're going to go ahead and cover Coliseum. For Coliseum, there's actually only, I guess you could say, 2 options really for payment for if you pay. Arguably 3, that being the arguable one being Maid Selena, because she gives you a chance of starting the match with the ball, which can be very nice to have in certain matches instead of getting constantly red coined and getting annoyed when you're trying to finish a match quickly. The opposite of that is actually Maid Eve, who actually gives the opponent the chance of starting with the ball. Don't know how useful that is, but I guess it'll be useful some places. Then you have, of course, I use her. I use Santa Eve. The reason being is because she increases the chances of finding a champion in the Coliseum of Despair by 10%. Doesn't sound like much, but it is. From there, we have the other pay option, and that is Korean Eve. Korean Eve increases your maximum BP while also lowering the consumption of BP. So spending less BP is nice because that means you can do more with less. The cap of BP is less, which I mean it actually caps at 199. That's the hard cap. So it kind of now that we can go over BP, that kind of weakened Korea Selena a little bit, but the BP consumption reduction is still very, very nice. Not only that, but her BP active is on a very, very short cooldown. Moving on from there, we also have Aaron. Aaron is great because he has a BP consumption passive, 20%. And then the last ones to round it out aren't really necessary. I use Claire because she increases max BP by 10. And then I also do the same thing for Sylvia because she also increases max BP. Like I said, it's not as strong because the BP is hard capped at 199. But let's say, for example, if you're not using BP actives or whatever and you're about to go to bed and you don't have an overnight slot, you can slap them on as the main trainers and you can go ahead and stack up a little more BP, into the night. So it's not bad. Nothing really fancy to say about the Coliseum slot. This one you can do without. You don't really need it. But I like using it because I don't like stat buffing my characters for Coliseum. Because, for example, Coliseum of Trials, if you have to make a certain CA limit, stat boosting managers can get in the way. Moving right along, we have another easy one, the Cellar slot. This isn't really necessary, but I like it. For here, we have Pajama Eve. Get more core points while you're selling them. This is going to be worth a lot more now because of the pending Season 4 change. Since they're going to be removing the Hell and Challenge difficulties for story. Getting stones is going to be a little more tedious. So, every bit of extra core points you can get is going to be worth it. Her active sucks. I'm sorry, but ever since they made the change to Spirit Stones, lowering it from a total of 6-star stones to 4-star stones, thus making uniques 5 stars and legendary uniques the new 6-star, it's actually weakened that active, which also hurt Marineko, who is the next one we're going to talk about. I have her listed here strictly because of extra space. So I go to this slot whenever I want to refresh my scout so that I can get a chance to get extra gatekeepers. So this is entirely optional. There's nothing really else to boost Spirit Stone selling items. So that one's up to you. So Pajama Eve is the only one that I would really recommend as a mandatory slot for the seller slot if you happen to have one. Same thing goes for the trainer slots. You can have whoever you want. I use everyone's favorite 2-star manager, aka the only 2-star manager, the one who really comes up in every single manager box ever. I use her because her cooldown is, super duper low. And I mean, I guess you can use her as an initial PvP manager also, while you're waiting to get Gerald and, Samuel or Clover. You can actually use her too, so I should have mentioned that before, but whatever. Same thing with Halloween Selena. It's actually pretty bad. It's actually a pretty terrible manager overall. The passive is horrible. And then the only saving grace is that her stamina recovery is on a super, super small cooldown. The main sellers here are going to be a pay-to-play option, which is Wedding Eve. You get 30% more gold when you sell Spirit Stones and players, and you also get 10% more GP when you sell characters. Okay, this is actually really nice. A 3-star player, for example, is 12 GP. She will bump it up to 13 GP. Every GP counts. But the one where you're going to see the big difference is on the super huge items. For example, if we go over to this one over here, let's say the AI Sigma, she's a GP minion. I get 35 GP when I sell her with the setup, right? If you set it normally, it's 32. So it's 3 more GP. Every bit counts. I don't care what anybody says. Every bit counts. The same thing applies to the big Neris, I believe. I don't have one, so I'm not going to bother. But just take my word for it. After that, we're going to cover the other option. The free option would be Mauve. Mauve is 30% for selling and for characters and spirit stones, not for GP, unfortunately. And then you also have Maya, who will be your other option if you do not have Wedding Eve. 20%. Not bad. That's pretty much it. The only ones that are really required is the 2 sponsor slots and then the 1 scout slot if you happen to have or spend for Pajama Eve. Last but not least, we have the overnight slot. That again really depends on you, but we're only going to really cover my first one because the second one's redundant. So the main thing you want to get for overnight, right? If you haven't noticed, I've used Selena repeatedly. All right, she's another one I would recommend that you purchase. Right, so we've covered her before, but gotta do it again. 10 GP, small cooldown, but then she also increases. She decreases the manager skill cooldown by 20%. All right, that goes hand in hand with Varus. Varus is a gold active, but he also decreases manager skill cooldown by 20%. So 20% from him plus 20% from Santa Selena, we're looking at a 40% cooldown reduction. So this is nice. For your trainers, you want to put any manager, be it pay to play or free to play, that gives you a big chunk of stamina when you wake up. That can be, for example, standard Eve, standard Selena. Any manager really that does that gives you stamina is who you want to put there. Hopefully, preferably one that gives 30 stamina. You can do that with Sylvia as well. Now, going from there, we have the Scouters. You can use, for example, Swimsuit Selena, like I mentioned before. She decreases training costs, but her active, she has a chance of giving you either a Gatekeeper or a Swirly. It's not bad. You can go with Marineko, who gives you a Spirit Stone. I mean, you could go with Jiun if you want to get 5 players, but that's a very long cooldown, not worth it. So I would recommend either Marineko. You can use Wedding Selena, who copies a main sponsor, just like Sigmund does. Or you can go with Kokabale. Kokabale's active is 15 GP. So that's actually not bad. If you're desperate to get GP because you fell behind or you want to get a quick stash, there's that. I don't really recommend the managers that give you, Penguins, Gatekeep. This one, like Zadkiel, it would be great if it wasn't 20 hours, but hers is completely dumpstered by Santa Eve. I always keep picking up for some reason. Like Santa Eve, because Santa Eve is the same thing. 5 Penguins, 5 Elementals, 5 Gatekeepers on a 4-hour cooldown. No, Zadkiel doesn't have better rates. I've tried it. So, there's that. Not really worth it. Like, for example, same thing, Aaron. He's a weaker version of it. 15 hours for 3 players. It's usually going to be 2-star players. It's not worth it. Okay? It's the same thing for Lion Dragon. It's the same thing for Jiun. It's the same thing for Eunice. So it's not really worth it. Maybe the special card, maybe the scouting thing might be useful, but that's again subjective. So that's that. You want to get Varus for the cooldown reduction. If you spent money, you can grab, Santa Selena. That helps too. But the main thing there is having something like that. If you don't want to do that, right? The main reason why I use the cooldown is honestly for Korean Eve, because she has a huge cooldown, but it gives you that nice premium ticket every couple of days. That's great. If you don't have that, then like I said, what I would suggest is putting on actives that have long cooldowns that'll go over the course of you going to sleep, which is typically 6 to 8 hours. Don't forget to get proper sleep, fellas. And, you know, that's that. So that pretty much covers everything, I believe. There's a lot of other managers that I haven't covered. For example, the weaker stat boosting managers, like for example, Claire, who gives a 20% boost of stamina, 20 points, excuse me, you know, or Mumu, who actually is a 2-stat boost, which is actually pretty nice. She's very, very good for beginners. So there's that, base snowball. So you want to go ahead and go with those options. Like I said, if you're starting off, I would actually say getting Mumu and never thought I'd do this, but I actually am okay with recommending Shireen. The reason being is because you'll be able to build her quickly, and that's 10 points of speed that you'll be able to get really really fast. It's better than nothing. It could be a difference maker. And then you have Mumu, who gives you the 10-point boost. So you can't go wrong with that. And then eventually you're gonna move to Clover / Samiel, and then of course Gerald and Lucy. Don't forget Lucy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that helps. This is gonna be going up on YouTube shortly. There is no real counterpart guide to this on Reddit. This is pretty simple stuff. But like I said, if you choose to support the game, great, thank you. If you're not, that's okay too. But know that there are options both within the choice of spending or keeping it free. Just remember to have your GP set aside. You want to get at least one copy of them. Like I said, the most important ones to scout for sure is Lucy, Gerald, and then Clover or Samiel. There's one more player I forgot to mention actually, so I gotta go back and cover that. It's in training because I forgot to mention Spirit Stones. You can use Irene over here. She is available in Scout. She lowers the cost of Spirit Stone power up, crafting, and combination. That's massive. She's going to be one of your biggest gold savers. And yes, it does stack with Spirit Stone discount. It does stack with Evolution discount. All that good stuff. So she is also a must-have alongside Lucy. Pairing her, you can pair her with Pajama Selena, aka She of Big Boobies. She increases the chance of Stone Evolution. Anecdotal, but hey, I've gotten a couple of extra ones ever since she came out, so I'm all for it. So yeah, I believe now that does cover everything. Everyone else is really subjective as far as usability. And that's really just a judgment call for you. So I basically just covered the ones that I feel are the most important to have. For obvious reasons. Like I said, the bare minimum, I mean, you start off with 2 slots. I would think it's actually a pretty good investment to get a 3rd slot. So 1 for PvP, 1 for general purpose that you'll change as you run along and do things, and then the 3rd slot for overnight. Because if you buy, let's say, Yukata Eve, which is definitely worth it, that's a premium ticket. That's gonna pay for itself eventually. So there you go. Alright, we're good to go as far as that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my dailies. And it looks like I kind of went on another 40-minute. This is gonna be another 40-minute video. Yeesh. Man, I talk too much. But yeah, that covers that. Guys got any questions, feel free to hit the comment section on the YouTube video, and then I'll go ahead and reply to that. And that's it. We'll see you on the pitch.